is up, people of the internet? My name is Avery and I've been using this HP Spectre x360 14 for the last 6 months. I am a third-year electrical engineering student at the University of British Columbia, and the Spectre has been my daily driver for all of my school-related tasks. From completing my homework assignments, to searching for internships and doing interviews, to doing some PCB design in Altium and KiCad, I'm going to go through my experiences of using the Spectre 14 for 6 months now, and what I've noticed from using it. And I can honestly say that this is one of the best laptops that I've used thus far. Let's get into it. Starting with the design, the Spectre does feel quite premium. I have the slate blue model and it does look quite sleek and understated. I will say that under certain lighting conditions, it can look more like a dark gray rather than a slate blue. And as with most darker finished laptops, the slate blue does show fingerprints. The sandblasted aluminum chassis feels very solid and premium in the hand, and there's virtually no screen or keyboard deck flex, which I really appreciate. In terms of size and weight, it's almost the exact same size as a 14-inch MacBook Pro, but a little bit lighter at 3.17 pounds or 1.44 kilograms. I've had no problems carrying this around with me while on campus, and I don't really feel it too much in my backpack either. That being said, this is a 2-in-1 device, meaning that you can also use it in a few different modes and also as a tablet as well. I personally don't use it in the tablet mode, but when I did try, it did feel quite heavy and cumbersome to use. So just a heads up, if you are planning to heavily use the 2-in-1 capabilities of this laptop, it is a little bit cumbersome in that tablet mode. A side effect of the Spectre 14 being a 2-in-1 laptop is that the hinge is a lot stiffer compared to a traditional clamshell laptop, which you kind of do want in order for the laptop to remain stable in its various positions and also when you're touching the screen as well. A downside of this is that you basically can't open it with one finger. As a side note, it's actually also somewhat difficult to open this laptop with your finger, as the small notch that's on the front of the laptop isn't actually deep enough to slot your finger into. I often find myself jamming my fingernail and using my other hand to stabilize the laptop in order to open it up. It's just a small nitpick from me, probably because I'm used to using a MacBook Pro, which I can open with one finger, but it's just something to know about. On the left-hand side of the laptop, we have a 10 gigabit per second USB Type-A port and a headphone mic combo jack. While on the right-hand side, we've got two Thunderbolt 4 USB-C ports that both support charging and data transfer. For the average user, this should be fine, but I do wish the USB-C ports were placed on either side of the laptop, as it makes it a little inconvenient if the outlet is on the left side of this laptop. I also wish that there was just one more USB-C port for extra flexibility when I have stuff plugged in. Moving on to the display, I'd say it's pretty good, but also with some room for improvement as well. The Spectre has a 14-inch 2880 by 1800 OLED touchscreen display with a fast 120Hz refresh rate. After staring at the screen for hours on end each day for the last 6 months, I can definitely say that it's really nice to look at. Colors are nice, viewing angles are great, and the high resolution makes things nice and clear on screen. And I also really appreciate the high refresh rate, which matches my other devices like my iPhone 16 Pro and also my iPad Pro as well. That being said, the Spectre's display only gets up to around 400 nits of brightness, and it's also a glossy display. This isn't really a particular issue for me since I'm only using this indoors and I'm very comfortable with the screen set to 50% brightness. But for how much this laptop costs and the price bracket that it's in, I would have liked to have seen a brighter display, maybe at least 500 nits, to combat the reflection from the glossy display, as it can become an issue if you're using this laptop near a window or outdoors. Last notes about the display, I did find the colors to be a little bit oversaturated out of the box, and I ended up switching to the standard sRGB display mode in the My HP software. and I haven't experienced any issues so far with burn-in or flickering as of the making of this video. Shifting our attention down to the keyboard deck, I'm honestly not that much of a keyboard nerd, but what I can say is that nothing has bothered me about this keyboard so far. It has a good amount of travel and a pretty satisfying click to it, and typing up the 2,500 word script for this video was actually quite pleasant. Moving a bit further down, we have the haptic trackpad, which I really like. I'm used to using a MacBook's haptic trackpad, and the Spectre's is very similar to a MacBook's. For context, a haptic trackpad actually doesn't depress when you click it, but it makes it feel like you clicked due to a vibration of a haptic motor right under the trackpad. Tracking is very accurate, and I really appreciate the large size of the trackpad as well. My main complaint is that palm rejection is not great on this laptop. I've often seen my cursor jump around on screen while I'm typing just because my palm was slightly resting on the corner of the trackpad, causing it to mistake it as an input. It is a little bit annoying, and I do really hope that they manage to fix this in the future with a driver update, because it's really a good trackpad otherwise. The speakers on the Spectre 14 are some of the best that I've heard on a Windows laptop. Sure, it's definitely not as good as the speakers on my MacBook Pro 14, but for just watching videos or for doing a video call, they sound pretty good. Just don't expect much bass or soundstage from them. On a side note, I did have a slight quality control issue with the speakers. About a month ago, as of the making of this video, my speakers started to sound very distorted and began vibrating the whole chassis whenever I played audio. Almost as if you bit crushed audio and then played it through the speakers, like it sounded like that. Unfortunately, I don't have any audio samples from this issue, but the problem did persist for around 2 to 3 days before disappearing, during which I was restarting my laptop like constantly and making sure that all of the drivers and software were up to date. I haven't experienced this issue since then, but I just wanted to point this out as something that could happen. Now let's get into performance. I chose the model with the Intel Core Ultra 7 155H CPU, 32 gigs of RAM, and a 2TB SSD. In my day-to-day tasks as an engineering student, the Spectre has been able to handle everything I've thrown at it without much heat or fan noise, which I really appreciate. In light tasks like browsing the web, office work, and emails, the Spectre has been very snappy, and there's practically no heat or fan noise for these tasks. However, if I do run apps like MATLAB, Altium, or KiCad, or if I'm doing a video call in Zoom or Microsoft Teams, there aren't any noticeable slowdowns, but the fans can kick in sometimes. They are audible if you're in a quiet room, but if there's any kind of background noise or background chatter from other people, the fan noise gets drowned out. Two final notes on performance: RAM is soldered, but the SSD and Wi-Fi card are replaceable. And speaking of, in my time with the Spectre, I've had no issues so far with Bluetooth or Wi-Fi connectivity. And for the spec nerds out there, this laptop comes with Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 5.4. Moving on to battery life, the Spectre actually does quite well for a Windows laptop. I'm definitely really spoiled with the battery life from my MacBook Pro 14, but I also don't get as much battery anxiety with this laptop compared to the previous Windows laptops that I've used. That being said, I would still recommend bringing a charger with you. On any given day, I'm mostly doing light tasks with my laptop for school, whether it be web browsing, office work, emails, job searching, watching YouTube videos, doing my homework assignments, or having reference material on screen for note-taking or when doing my labs. On a light day, when I'm not using my laptop that extensively, I'm talking maybe like 2 to 4 hours of screen on time, the Spectre's 68 watt-hour battery can easily make it through a whole day without plugging in and still have around 40 to 50% remaining. But on longer days, or if I'm using more power-hungry applications like MATLAB or Altium, I may need to plug in at around 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock during the day. Just for context, my screen brightness is set to 50%, Windows Energy Saver is enabled, and the refresh rate is set to 120 Hz with dynamic refresh rate enabled. And obviously, you can get more battery life out of this laptop by lowering the screen brightness and reducing the refresh rate. But unfortunately, if you choose to reduce the refresh rate, you can only reduce it down to 48 Hz, but not 60. And before we cover pricing, let's quickly go over some of the last little things about the Spectre 14. This is a camera and microphone test of the HP Spectre x360 14. It has a 1440p webcam at the top that's also 9 megapixels as well. It looks decent. Colors are a little bit washed out and it's a little softer for 1440p, but should be decent enough for most video calls. And this is the microphone quality as well. Again, not the best, but it should be good enough for like any Zoom, Teams, or a job interview. One feature that I want to point out for those of you who are more privacy minded is that there are actually 2 function keys on the keyboard dedicated to muting your microphone and also closing a shutter over top of your webcam. However, if you do choose to keep the shutter closed, Windows Hello facial recognition will not work anymore. Speaking of, Windows Hello facial recognition is super fast and convenient, and there's also a fingerprint reader on the power button as well. And lastly, about what comes in the box with the Spectre 14, as there's a little bit of confusion over this. My model came with the HP Tilt Pen in the box. I personally haven't used it at all in my time with this laptop, as I have an iPad Pro for note-taking already, but it's there if you would like to use it. But I will say, when I was doing a little bit of a writing sample on this laptop, I realized that the screen on the HP Spectre 14 has very bad palm rejection when you're using the pen. So if you're resting your palm on the screen while you're writing, you will see that it will mistake your palm as an input for the pen as well. So you might see some scribbles there as well. So just a heads up on that. I have heard that some models do not come with the pen, so make sure you check if the pen is included if it's something you really care about. I have also heard rumors of some models coming with a small USB-C hub in the box that gives you some extra ports. Mine didn't come with one personally, and I can't seem to find any mention of an included USB-C hub on the product page for any of the Spectres. So don't get your hopes up for it. Alright, let's wrap this up with pricing and final thoughts. My model with the Core Ultra 7, 32 gigs of RAM, and a 2TB SSD retails for 2,400 Canadian dollars, but I did manage to get it for $200 off on the HP website at the time that I purchased it. There are also 2 other lower tier configurations of this laptop. One with a Core Ultra 5, 16 gigs of RAM, and a 512 gig SSD for 1,840 Canadian dollars, and another one with a Core Ultra 7, 16 gigs of RAM, and a 1TB SSD for 2,040 Canadian dollars. One thing that I have noticed though is that all of these configurations regularly go on sale for at least $200 off, especially if you live in the USA. I personally think that the best configuration for most people who would be interested in this laptop would be the Core Ultra 7, 16 gigs of RAM, and 1TB SSD model. So if you can get it on sale for at least $200 off or more, I really do believe that this laptop will be a great buy for the average person. Heck, this is like the 4th laptop that I've bought for myself for school in the last like 5 years. And I can finally say that I've landed on something that doesn't have any major problems and that I genuinely love to use every day. Anyways, that's been it for my review of the HP Spectre x360 14 for 2024. As always, gently tap the like button, hit that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell to notify whenever I release a new video. With that being said, I hope this video brought you value, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.